All right. And I think everybody is getting to be pros at the Zoom thing. It seems like everybody already knows how to do it. That's wonderful compared to where we started about a year ago, when we first started doing this. We've all gotten a little bit better, I think. So anyway, let's put a spotlight on mine so everybody can see it. And I just have a couple of things on my desktop that might be helpful, and you don't have to have everything exactly the way I do for this to work today. So one of the things, first of all, I have my napkin. That's good for wiping off fingers. Baby wipes are good too. I have a piece of paper that we're going to draw on. I have my roll of masking tape. What I have on my desk is actually a Cheerios box, and I'm going to use that to actually tape my piece of paper down to. So you might have been wondering what we're going to do with the tape, and this will explain it a little bit. I also have my drawing pencil close by, and I hear you guys have some gel pens. We might not even get to those. And I have two packages. I have 24 colors. You guys will all have the 12, plus you'll have a selection out of this one. So if you don't see the exact same color that I have, you can just kind of choose whatever is closer, and some of this you'll be able to kind of make it up, make your own decisions, and mine will just be some suggestions. So I'm going to open all those up and set them on my desktop, and then I'm also going to do my tape. So if you've taken a...
Lisa, do you want to tell them which piece of paper might be best? Because they do have a couple different kinds of paper.
Okay.
They have cardstock, they have kind of a white artist paper, as well as a kind of tan mid-tone paper. So they're all cut, so they don't need to cut them.
So they're all about the 5x8 size or whatever that is. Yep. Okay, perfect. So there's a couple different things, and you're going to want to try different kinds of papers as we're doing this, or not necessarily today, but as you practice more with the oil pastels, you might want to start out with kind of a smoother paper. It makes it a little bit easier to do the blending that we're going to do on a smooth paper. If you want to get a little bit more detail and build up more layers of color, the little bit paper that has a little bit more texture to it works better, but it is a little bit more work. So just the cardstock or whatever is kind of the smoothest would be great. And let's see, something else I was going to say. Okay, we're going to do the masking tape. So I'm going to take a piece of masking tape that's a little bit longer than my piece of paper is. And you could tape this. I have done this before where I've taped it right to my tabletop. Most masking tape is just going to come up perfectly fine. You're not going to ruin your desktop or anything like that. And I'm going to take one end. For some reason, I usually start with my left hand. And when I set it down next to the paper, I want to be able to see about half of the tape is covering the paper and half of it sticking to my my desktop. And then I'm going to adjust how high this side is so that I have that pretty much spaced all the way across. Now, I'm not going to press it down really hard on the paper. I might press it down a little bit onto my background. So it will stick to your paper. One trick that you can do if you are doing multiple paintings and you think that when you're taking the tape off, if it rips your paper, one of the things you can do is cut your roll of your piece of tape and take it like this and just stick it down to your jeans and pull it back up, or whatever pants you have on. And that'll kind of like actually get just a tiny bit of fuzz on it. And it's not quite so sticky. So we want it to stick, but we don't want it to be super sticky. So I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to do both sides, or the ends kind of, all exactly the same way. Just kind of get it in place. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you do get better at the taping as you practice that too.
And we should say you don't have to do a tape border. We've just found that it looks when you're done, and this is probably one of the trickiest parts that you'll do today. But it really makes it, you'll see when we're all done, it really makes it neat when you pull it up, because then it gives it a nice border like Miss Lisa's has right there.
So this is one of the video links that you'll get is how to do this picture. And you can see the white border all the way around it. So the tape just keeps it clean. And it kind of helps hold your paper in place because we're going to be rubbing on the paper some. And this doesn't work with a really thin paper because the paper tends to crinkle. But when you're rubbing on it, it's kind of nice to have the tape holding it in place. The other picture that the other video is just a tulip, and you can see the border on that one as well. So that's what the tape will help you get when you're done. Okay. I'm also going to take one piece of tape, and I'm going to take probably just my drawing pencil, and I'm going to find on my tape up here, I'm just going to make a little mark that's about in the middle of the paper on the top and the bottom. And I'm going to take one more piece of tape that goes all the way across there. And I'm going to put the tape edges, one edge of it's going to line up with that. Now I'm going to work on this side to start with, where the tape, the edge of this is the middle of the paper. I'm going to work on this half. When I get this done, I'm going to carefully take this tape up and move it over so I can work on the other half. I am going to do kind of a daylight sunset picture on this side. And on this side, I'm going to do more of a nighttime picture. And so those of you who are in a family and you're sharing a set of colors, one person could work on the nighttime side and one person could work on the daytime side. So you don't have to share your colors right as you're going. So we're going to do what are called gradients. And there's a bunch of ways you can choose your own colors, but we're going to do kind of a dark, a medium, and a light. So one that works really well for the sunset side would be a red, orange, yellow. That would work really well. For the nighttime side, maybe you actually use the black, a dark blue, light blue, and a gray. You could do 3 or 4 colors. If you want to get a little creative, you could do a green set. That's a dark green, light green, and maybe even a yellow. Something like that. So as you're looking at the colors you have in front of you, because everybody's going to have a slightly different set, just go ahead and kind of pick and choose and share with each other so that you have a nice, this one's a little hard. I was going to say if I had a light blue or something, but you can mix and match however you want. Maybe I could do that. That's a little goofy, not with the orange, I guess. And you don't have to keep all those 3 colors in front of you. You could just take turns with them. So I am going to work on my sunset side first, and I think I am just going to do simply red, orange, yellow. I do have a lighter orange, a pale orange, or an orange, yellow orange, I guess it is. I might throw that in there too. So mix and match and divvy up your pencil or your, I like to call them crayons because they kind of feel like a crayon, and just be willing to share if you're in a family that has more than one person using the set, because we will take turns. I'm going to try to go back and forth and kind of do some of the colors so you can follow along regardless of what color you're using.
A question.
Yes.
Are we supposed to be doing starting now?
Yep. If you're ready to start, I'm going to color and I'm going to explain what I'm doing as I go. You can do it 2 ways. You can sit and watch and kind of listen and see what I'm doing and then go back and do it later. And this is being recorded, so you can watch it again later, regardless, either way. Or you can just kind of color along with me. So that's what a lot of people seem to be able to do. And it's kind of fun because then we're all done at the same time. So when I'm done with this picture, I'm going to draw an outline of Sugar Loaf down here on the bottom of the page. And so I don't really need to put any color in here. I'm going to take the rest of the page and kind of almost like a rainbow, I'm going to divide it up into some different colors. So I'm going to do my dark color and kind of my middle color, then my lighter middle color, and then the rest will be my yellow, my light color. So that's just kind of, so you can see if you were going to do your dark side first, you would do the same thing. You can do them in straight lines this way, or you could do them in straight lines this way, or you can do them in curved lines. It doesn't matter. And as you practice and you do these over and over again with different pictures, you're going to want to just try some different directions on those things. So first off, we're going to use a really light pressure on our crayons. And we're not really coloring it all in. We're just going to get some color down on the paper. Now, before I started, I cleaned off my red crayon because I had been using it with some blues before, and you see how it was kind of dirty. So I'm going to make sure that it's clean, and I'm just going to scribble in really lightly. You'll see lots of white paper through it, but I'm going to get an idea of where I want my colors to go. Now we're going to overlap all these colors eventually because we're going to blend them together and do what's called a gradient. You won't be able to see the line between where one color started and the other color kind of stops. They just kind of blend together. And so first things, I'm just going to get those colors down on the paper really lightly. This is scribbling like when you were in kindergarten scribbling. And I might go a little bit further on my yellow one because I'm going to put some Sugarloaf down there. Okay, so if you were doing the other side, if you do black, now I can't do all of my colors on the right side of my picture because my tape's in the way, but I could do a little bit of black up in the corner. Then I could do a row that's kind of dark blue. And then I could go to my lighter blue, and I could kind of end up maybe with a gray on the bottom. So that's another option over there. So whichever color side you're working on, that works totally fine. Now what I'm going to, yes, go ahead.
Real quick on the right side, could you maybe just kind of make the lines for the dark colors?
Oh, over here?
Yeah, so just kind of like you made the preliminary line, so then they know where they can fill in if they're working on that side.
So I think this is, let's see, I have a couple different blues here. I think this is a really dark blue. So I'm going to do it kind of the same way in a kind of like a rainbow shape. And then now this is what I'm going to have to fill it in more later when I take that tape up. Then see, I can't find my light blue. Oh, there it is. Kind of just opposite of all these other ones I'm putting on there. That would be my light blue area. And then I might do gray down at the bottom. And when you're doing grays, make sure you clean off your crayon and don't get a bunch of other colors smudged on it. So however you want to divide those sections up, that works. It's up to you. And that's where everybody's will be a little bit different when we're done. And it gets kind of fun. Now I have a purple, kind of a dark purple in my set. Not everybody's going to have this, but since I have it, I think I'm going to put a little tiny bit of the really dark purple at the top of my red section. And now I'm going to start going back and forth over things and gradually start filling in some of the white spots of the paper. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap all the lines I put down before. So where I did purple in this one, I'm going to color red over the line between it, then a little bit more red down into the solid red zone, and then maybe just a little bit of red down into the orange. Then I can take my orange and I can overlap it up into the red zone, color my orange section, and overlap it just a little bit into the yellow orange. Then I can do the same thing. So each time I add another color now, I'm going to start overlapping it with the previous color. And then when I get down to my yellows, I think I'll take the yellow up into the yellow orange. And even though I don't have a completely solid color on my paper yet, you're starting to see instead of 4 colors, there's almost 8 colors in there, because of where they all overlap. And even just with that second really kind of a light layer, you can see how it just kind of gradually changes from the light to the dark. Now, if you wanted it really bright and light on this side, you might actually even, it's hard to see, but you might actually do a little section of white down here. You won't be able to see how it goes down on my paper, but then when I color over that with my yellow, it's going to make an even lighter yellow. All right. So hopefully some of you are doing that with the dark side and kind of just overlapping all of the colors as they go from darkest to lightest colors. And we'll get to see. And once I get done with one side, I'll switch my tape and we can do the other side. So whichever side you didn't get to see first, you'll get to see later. Now I'm going to start, and I'm coloring in the same direction as those lines. And I'm going to start putting just a little bit more down on the paper. And you don't even really need to get down into this corner because that's where we're going to put the picture of Sugar Loaf. And as you're coloring, you'll start to feel how the paper gets a little bit more smooth because you're filling in all the white space in the on the paper with this waxy, I think it's kind of a waxy surface with the pigment, and it just kind of smooths out as it fills in. Sometimes I take one space, like maybe I want to do this line between the yellow orange and the yellow, and I can kind of go back and forth with the two colors for a while. I don't have to work on the whole thing at once. I can just work on a section of it. And as I'm going from my yellow orange section into my yellow section, I'm using less pressure with the dark crayon. So I can use more pressure up here. And then when I come down here into the yellows, I'm just kind of tickling the paper.
How's it going for people? Can you give a thumbs up if you're following along? Is anybody
coloring away?
Is anybody thumbs down, like we need to slow down or anything? Okay, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up.
Good.
That's good. Excellent. I'm so excited to see these.
Yep. Every once in a while, one of your crayons might pick up a fleck of a different color, and it'll bring it down into an area and kind of make a streak where you didn't really want it. And you can sometimes actually push really hard on that spot with a white or a light one and actually pick it up with that crayon, and then you can wipe it off on your napkin. And it's all good. It won't ruin it.
I find sometimes too I can use a nail to kind of scrape it out too.
That would be good if you had long fingernails, or mine always get broken off.
The more that you do something, you'll also kind of find tricks that work for you and find out what kind of paper you like best and different things like that.
I would definitely suggest whichever type of paper you picked for this, that on maybe when you go to watch the video and you want to do this river scene, maybe use a different kind of paper and see how it works, because everybody kind of seems to like, some people like a more rough textured paper and some people really like the smooth paper. So it's really good to try them all. And now I'm kind of working on this line between my red and my regular orange. So I'm going to go back and forth between those. Oops, better check to make sure that I'm using the right color here. And then maybe I'm just going to do a little bit of that purple back up in the top too again. So when we're going back and forth and overlapping the colors and building up more layers of colors or filling in the paper a little bit, we can call that burnishing. And when you burnish something, it's like rubbing it hard, and you'll start to see my colors get really smooth and intense. Now, you can always take a white or the lighter colors, and you can use that to blend out into your darker colors, kind of smooth it all together. And the white isn't going to totally change your red to pink, and it's not going to it's certainly not going to leave any white on there. It might kind of make it look a little blurry, but it kind of just blends it all together. So sometimes it works to color over layers with your white pastel. And then the cool thing is once you've done that, and if you think, oh, it got a little bit too blurry or too white, you can go back over it again with the original colors and add some more color in there. Once you get all of or most of the white specks in the paper kind of filled in, it gets a little smoother and it is actually easier to put a little bit down. All right. So I'm getting to where you can't see a whole lot of the white specks in my paper showing through anymore. It's pretty smooth when I color over it. Now I'm going to go back one more time, I think, with the original colors and just put a light layer. So I'm going to overlap each of those color sections. And then I'm going to make sure that my finger is clean. Wipe it on the paper towel. And I'm going to start in my lightest color. And this is where I said it helps to have the paper taped down to something. I'm going to rub it back and forth, and the heat from my finger and the friction from rubbing it is going to smooth those colors out even more. And it almost is like it's melting them together. So your finger can be your blending tool. When you start with the light color and you go into the darker colors, you probably want to be careful that you don't pull the darker colors down into the light colors. I'm going to do that just so you can see what happens. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I can make a streak of darker stuff. And I'm literally just pulling my dark crayon down into the light. So you want to be careful. It's great if you want to do that, if you want to make some streaks in the sky or streaks in whatever you're doing, but just so you know that it doesn't surprise you that you accidentally pull the darker color down into the white one if you don't want to. So the nice thing about the oil pastels is the color or the pigment in them is really, really bright, and it makes for things like sunsets and flowers, it makes them so pretty because they're just really intense. And after living in Minnesota all winter when everything was white and blue and brown, it's kind of nice to see the spring colors once things start to bloom again. So I have a little bit of a line between my red and my orange, and the red is always one of the hardest ones to blend. So I might need to put more orange in there and see if I can do a dark orange here. Yeah, see, just a little bit is all it takes to kind of smooth that out. Now you should be able to see, or should be able to not see really the lines of where you put those colors down originally. And you can just see this almost like a rainbow where one color just fades into the next one. So give us a thumbs up. Are you getting some rainbow blended rainbows? Yay, I see a bunch of thumbs up. That's good. So well, we can talk a little bit at the end when people can share a little bit, but I'm anxious to know if anybody's ever done this with the oil pastels before, because it's usually new for a lot of people. All right, if you are working on one side and you're not done, that's fine. You can keep working on it, or you can go along with me and switch to your other set of colors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up this middle piece of tape that I had marked in the middle. And when I pull it, I'm going to keep my fingers really close to the paper, but I'm going to pull kind of sideways really carefully. And when you get almost down to the edge, be ready to catch it so it doesn't curl up on itself. And then I'm going to take it and turn it around and put it on the line going the other way. Now it doesn't have much sticky on it, and it's hard to get it to stick to the oily part here, so you can go ahead and press down on it a little bit. And now I can color with my dark colors, my cool colors, my blues and stuff. And I can color right up to that line and not accidentally go over the line with, let's say, I don't want to take a dark blue over into my yellow. So this will help protect what I've already done. If your tape doesn't come up nicely or it doesn't seem to be sticky, you can always cut off another piece of tape and put it over there. That's fine as well. So now you can see where I couldn't finish my kind of my rainbow edges here. So I'm going to go back in and actually do that first layer of color over everything on my dark side. Get my blues kind of straightened right around here. So I'm just going to kind of start over here. That's the darkest blue I could find in my set. I have two blues that are kind of similar colors to each other. So that even when you're putting down your first layer, you don't have to be really careful about where the line is. You can do some overlapping even right from the start. Then I'll go to kind of the, let's see what this one is called, cobalt blue. Let's see, I like to have my hand go in the same direction as those lines if I can. This one's still not a whole lot lighter, is it? I think I'm going to do more of my light blue than I had originally intended. Blues might be easier to blend because they're kind of closer together in color. And I think my last one was gray. And go about like that. Now everybody can make their sections different color, different widths. You can pick any combination of colors that you want to do. This one just happens to work best if you use a light color and then your colors just get darker as they go towards the outside. Get right along that line there. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing you've already done. You should be a pro at it. And I'm going to start with some of my lighter colors. And I'm going to go kind of a half and half across the colors. My blue gets to color into the gray section, or my light blue does, I guess I should say. And I can maybe even take the light blue up into the darker blue and then go back and take the dark blue into the light blue. So they can just kind of take turns overlapping on their edges a little bit. And you might be able to see even in the camera that my paper has quite a bit of texture to it. Lots of white lines left from my crayons not completely filling the white in. Then again, I'm going to overlap those two a little bit. Where I'm doing the overlapping, I usually use a pretty light touch with my crayons. I don't push too hard. And actually, I don't really put much pressure on them until I'm probably doing about the third layer anyway. All right, now I'm going to start going back in. Let's start to fill in some of the white specks in the paper. Make it a little darker. Just got to remember to keep doing basically the same order with my crayons. This can take a while because you have to kind of layer those colors. That's why we use this 5x7 or really no bigger than a 6x9 size piece of paper because it can be a lot of coloring. Let's see, I got to try to remember what color I'm on here. Now my crayons are starting to get worn down right to the edge of the paper. So I'm going to show you this little trick before I go too much further. if you take all the label off of your oil pastel while you're using it, it breaks a lot easier. So I don't like when they break. I have a couple sets that just have a bunch of little pieces in them. So when I need more oil pastel, I'll try to peel up a little bit of the corner, and then I'll hold my other finger there and rip it so that I only rip a little bit off, not the whole thing. Sometimes it just comes off and there's nothing you can do about it. I haven't tried just taping new ones or taping them back on, but even a little bit of tape around your pencil might help keep it, or your crayon. I guess I keep changing what I'm calling it. That might help it to keep it from breaking if your label falls off completely. All right, is that looking like a night sky, or looking more like a night sky compared to the sunset we did on the other side? And some of you, I suppose, are working on your sunset side now. So same rules apply. If I have a light color, I can use that to go up into the darker colors and blend them. It kind of just pushes the pigment down into all those little grooves in the paper and blends it out. And when you start seeing mostly pigment on the paper and not a whole lot of the white of the paper showing through, that's when it's time to go in and blend with your finger too. And every once in a while you might want to clean off your color crayon. Sometimes I like to go right down along the edge of the tape and make sure I have a straight line right along the tape. Now, this does take, it takes time, obviously. In order to blend with your fingers, you have to put quite a bit of color down on the paper. So once you get to this point, don't be afraid to push a little bit and keep coloring over it till it's just all colored in. All right, I'm getting there, so I'm going to make sure my finger's clean. I'm going to start. I don't have as much pigment on the paper down here, so I might not be able to blend that as well as I would like, but I can smooth it out a little bit. And I'm going to be really careful when I get over to this edge so I don't pull too much of the yellow and stuff into my blues, because of course that'll make it kind of a greenish color. And last time I checked, I didn't like when the sky was too green, because that usually means it's kind of some kind of a storm. But if you wanted to do a picture with more of a stormy sky, maybe you could do a green gradient and maybe put a splash of lightning or something across it to make it look like a stormy day. Sometimes people will just use a green sky when they want the ground level stuff to look like it's green stuff that's growing. And when you put the details in with the pencil, it obviously doesn't have any color. So sometimes just the color you have in the sky makes a great color to pretend what all your trees and stuff are. Okay. Now I'm going to try to keep some of this stuff clean. I am actually going to take my middle piece of tape off. So when you get to where you have a lot of color on your page, feel free to take your tape off. A lot of times I will put something like a tree or whatever over that line in the middle. But this time I'm not going to do a tree in the middle. So I think I'm going to take my white crayon and I'm really carefully going to go up and down this line between my warm side and my cool side. And I'm just going to try to blend out that line a little bit so it goes a little bit more smoothly from one color or one side to the next. It's not going to be a real pretty blend, but if I can at least make it look like a blurry line. Let's see, we'll try a few things here. I'm going to go kind of a really short back and forth line, like a little zigzag there, and see if I can get those two colors to kind of overlap a little bit more smoothly. So you will have a kind of a streak in the middle. That's fine. But you can maybe soften the line between the two a little bit. Make it look blurry. All right, when you think you've got a large portion of your sky done, give us a thumbs up so we can see how everybody's doing. And when we're all done, we can hold up some pictures and share them. All right, that's good because time is going fast and I want you to put a little bit of the shape of Sugarloaf in. So what I did in my sketchbook was I just drew out the shape of Sugarloaf that I want to use. So it's going to be like you're standing down by Dairy Queen maybe, and you're looking up at Sugarloaf, and you're just looking at the very top edge of Sugarloaf. So here's the hill, and then there's the rock. But what we're going to do is called a silhouette. We are not going to actually color any colors on the hill itself. So what I need to do is just look at this line and notice I'm starting down in the corners, and it's a sloping line up to kind of the shoulder of the hill, and another swooping line up to that shoulder. This shoulder is a little bit lower than this one, than the rock there. Now, Sugarloaf is very familiar to anybody who lives in this area, and you don't have to have it perfect in order for it to be recognizable. So what I'm going to do now is take my drawing pencil, and I'm going to start somewhere down in this corner. And I think I only want to go up maybe this high for the hill. So the hill itself is kind of like that, and then it swoops down over here, and it kind of swoops down over here. Can you guys see those pencil marks on the camera? Okay, and then the rock kind of sits in the middle of that, and from this angle it's a little bit higher on this side, and then it kind of goes down, and it's a little crooked. So it doesn't have to be a smooth line because it's all rocks and trees. We know it's not smooth. And then I'm going to really carefully color along that line, make it a little bit wider with my drawing pencil. And I'm going to start to kind of outline it a little bit. And go all the way down the other side. And once I have a nice outline of Sugarloaf, now I can take my black oil pastel, and I'm basically just going to color all of that in really dark. And the oil pastels, because they're not very sharp, it's hard to get close to the line. So if it's if you don't want to color over the line, you can always come back in with the coloring pencil and kind of color over those areas.
And technically, we think of outlines as being black and dark and shadowed, but since this is art, we could, if there's more than one person in a house and they wanted to make the shadow a different color, could they? Sure,
you could do the whole thing in brown. You could put some color in the shape of Sugarloaf if you wanted. You could do it. The hill part of it could be all dark green. let me just grab one of my dark greens. We'll try that on this side. And then maybe later when you're switching up with colors and stuff, maybe you take turns and someone else does the dark green while you use the black. And the same thing with the rock. It's more of a, it's not a black at all. But now that we have those other colors on there, it might be really hard to make it look kind of brown rock colored, but I think I'm going to make mine black. Yeah, so if there's 2 or 3 of you in one family all using the black oil pastel, then just take turns getting that in, and maybe someone else can just finish it later. All right, so one of the things you guys have in the kit is some gel pens. And one of the tricks with gel pens is actually to leave your picture sit and almost dry. I know it's not really technically wet, but if you leave it sit to kind of harden and dry out a little bit, it is easier to write over it with gel pens. And you could draw other features in there. I think one of the things that's fun is to put some birds in the sky, and you don't have to be a really good artist to draw a bird flying, because it can just be kind of like a V, and it looks like some birds. And what kind of bird flies up around above Sugarloaf? How about an eagle? Some of you might have some other tools at home from other art supplies. And one of my favorite ones to use is an acrylic paint pen. There's my paint pen. Looks like this. Or sometimes they're called markers. It's just white paint in a marker. And you actually have to pump the marker up and down to get the ink flowing. And if you go and just put a little white dot right in the middle there, it kind of looks like an eagle. You can do that if you have a light colored gel pen. Sometimes they're like even a gold or silver one would be kind of cool to do that with. The other thing, let's try with the white. It's kind of hard to color over the dark blue, but I can do kind of a white moon. Takes a lot of pressure. But so that's all the, I can't really get it really white with the white pastel. But if I go in with some white paint, it's a much whiter, more opaque look.
And I found too, even if you're looking, if you don't have a white paint pen, sometimes it's not as fine of a line, but you can even get at the dollar store, you can get the old-fashioned whiteout in the bottle, and it has a little paintbrush kind of thing that you can use. That's something, yep, the correction fluid. So not the whiteout that has the, that's now like a dispenser, like a tape dispenser, but the old-fashioned one that has the line like that.
This has like a little paintbrush in it. And sometimes what I do is I will take the paintbrush out of it and set it on like a paper plate. And then I'll actually take a little paintbrush and touch up that, touch the white paint. And with the paintbrush, I can put it on there. So at night, of course, we'll see some stars. So I'm just going to put little dots on there for stars. Sometimes it's kind of fun to make it look like one of the stars is shining, or like you have a, what am I trying to say? Like a meteor shower or something. A whole bunch of spots here that kind of trail out into a trail. Isn't that kind of cool? You can do the same thing with white. Sometimes the white crayon actually works better on your lighter colors, but you could pretend that the sun is setting behind Sugarloaf, and the sun doesn't usually actually set on this side of Sugarloaf. If everybody knows where the sun sets in Winona, it sets the other direction, but you could do a sun, and I have to press pretty hard with the white to make it look like there's a bit of a sun shining there. Maybe we just need some, oh, we'll do daytime. Just some little tiny birds. Whole flock of them here. And don't forget to put your name on it for a signature. Every artist needs to leave his signature on his work or her work. And I can just kind of keep going back over some of these places until I'm sure that I have it the way I want. And actually, after you have a lot of black on, you can go back in with like a dark green or your brown and color over that black, and then you just get a really dark green, but it's not totally black. And you could probably do the same thing with the brown on the rock. It's going to look mostly dark, but it's just a little bit different color of dark. And I'm never sure how much of that works that you can see through the camera lens, but hopefully that you get an idea of that. I am pretty close to what I think I am done with today, so I'm going to carefully pull my tape off. And then remember, your fingers are probably a little dirty, so be careful you don't touch that white border. And I did both of my short sides last, so I'm going to pull those off first. Now I have to ask, did anybody do like a purple and pink gradient for their sky or any other colors from what I did?
Here's mine.
Oh, there we go.
I did a little bit of pink down here.
Okay, so if you got a pink one, that would be a nice one to put in with the sunset gradient. Oil pastels are fun, and they're not super expensive like paint is. So it is nice if you like drawing with the oil pastels to maybe someday get a larger set. I have a big set here. I'll show you all the colors I have. And then if you're pulling off your tape and you want to show the rest of the class, we can go one at a time and spotlight.
Yeah. Why don't you show those, and then I will do a quick announcement, and then we'll stop the recording so that, and we'll welcome everybody just to show their artwork, and we'll do that off camera. How about that?
So that sounds good. So this is a 48-piece set of oil pastels, and you can see when you get a bigger set, you have more pinks and purples and various colors that you don't get when you only have 12. So it's kind of fun. And not as expensive as, you know, some kinds of paint and stuff. So, all right. So before we have everybody share their pictures.
Yep. So I just wanted to make a quick announcement. There's a little information about it in your packet, but we are going to be, we're asking that if anybody wants to share the artwork that you did today or something that you create on your own after, we're going to have a kind of community-wide scavenger hunt. And on that scavenger hunt, we're going to put the artwork in various places throughout Winona. And so we hope that maybe you'll consider letting us borrow one of your art pieces for a little while so that other people get to enjoy your artwork. And you'll have a chance in April then to go through the community and try to solve a little puzzle, kind of a mystery art hunt. So you'll get to solve a puzzle and get to see other students, everybody else's work too. So hopefully you'll consider submitting either this piece or one of the other, like maybe you want to follow one of the tutorials that we're going to provide later, and or create something all on your own. The only thing that we're asking is that they're kind of Winona themed. So maybe you want to put a silhouette of Princess Winona, the fountain statue, or maybe you want to make something that has Play-Dohs on it. So something that makes you think of Winona, or something that you think is very spring related, because the theme is Winona Grows. And so we're kind of thinking of Winona and springtime. So there's information in your kit about that, and I'll send out an email when I send out the recording. There'll be a little information about how you can share your artwork with us. But I think now we'll go to the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording unless